we'll be seeing more of him. But it is time for my favorite format, Legacy. We're going to be looking at some Team Riddell versus Cephalid Breakfast. We got Ben Unger on your left, Cliff Borodie on your right, and already we see some surveil actions from a meticulous archive and a nice turn 1 Delver start. And, well, turn 1 Dragon's Rage Chandler, but a nice turn 1 for the Delver deck.
Well, we are off to the races. I am excited to be here with you for the rest of the way, Drake. And Legacy is a good place for us to kick things off, huh?
It sure is. And I actually misspoke again. The looks like the bottom is not correct. Our little thing, because I mean, Cephalid Breakfast, I don't think plays Dragon Rage Chandler, right? So we got to get those names swapped around. We'll get that updated here for you in just a moment. But Prismatic Ending on Dragon's Rage Chandler, a nice little exchanging of resources. I mean, these are two classic decks, right? Cephalid Breakfast has been around as long as I've been playing Legacy. It still maintains those like breakfast cereal naming conventions that all those decks used to have. And of course, Delver has been the face of Legacy for decades, and maybe only now just falling off.
Oh gosh, you said decades, and I just instantly, I just got a few more gray hairs. I've already got plenty, but I got a few more when you said decades on Delver. I remember playing it in Standard. Oh no.
In Standard, huh? I always played through that Standard too. Come on now.
I do remember playing it in Standard with Vapor Snag. It was great. But yeah, I guess it's close to it anyway. It's pretty old. So Cephalid Breakfast, though, like as someone who has had a hand in naming decks over the years and what decks can't be named and what they cannot be named, Cephalid Breakfast, I am very glad it exists as a deck name. It would never, ever be allowed to be a deck name today, and I would be one of the people who makes it not a deck name. However, I'm glad it is because it's an amazing deck that has really come back into prominence over the last few years, I guess, right? Or even more recently than that. It really spent a long time as not a deck in Legacy, but it's got such a powerful engine that it's built around to combo that once the shell and the metagame sort of reformed around it, Cephalid Breakfast right back on camera at 4-1, heading towards the top 8 here, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great spot. And of course, we are in the penultimate round. This is number 6 of 7 right now. 2 5-0 teams. As here comes a very important wasteland to take care of this Urza Saga. One of the big pickups, we talk about Cephalid Breakfast, the deck that's been around for a long time. Gotten a lot of very good pickups over the recent years, especially from the Modern Horizon set. Urza Saga, one of them. Another one, maybe a questionably bannable, the Nadu Winged Wisdom. We got 4 copies of those in Cliff Borodie's deck. And Delver, we know what it's been doing. A little bit less on the upgrade recent upgrades rather, and still good, still powerful, and deploying a mediocrely sized, I'll say, Murktide Regent, not the super sized Murktide Regent you're used to seeing. Only a 4/4 is this one, but still very quick and bigger than the construct is really the equation of the battlefield right now. As Swords to Plowshares looks like we're wasting no time on that one. Get it out of the way.
Yeah, the greatest trick deck builders ever pulled was getting you to call it a Delver deck instead of a Daze deck, because essentially it lasts forever because of Daze. That's what the shell always is, whether it's a Delver or a Dragon's Rage Channeler, as we see Ben pick up one of those and deploy it as well, or whatever the other 1-drop of the day is. Daze is the backbone of the Delver decks.
Come on, we're talking about a deck with Brainstorm, Wasteland. Like, they're just gonna act like these cards are zeros. It's all, Force of Will. Yeah, these don't matter. It's all Daze.
They call it a Brainstorm
Daze, what's the problem?
Brainstorm Daze. The same 12 blues, 12 to 16 blue cards that are always tier 1 or 1.2 in Legacy. But hey, that's fine because they tend to make for very interactive, fun games of Magic, like we're watching here, as a matter of fact, right? Like Dragon Rage Channeler versus Constructs. This is some wholesome Magic.
Yeah, interesting too, like the ways that these two decks are attacking the format, right? You're talking about a deck that played Prismatic Ending and Source of Plowshares, very much looking to leverage those powerful 1-mana white cards to answer things on the board. Whereas the Delver deck, like you just called out, very traditionally looks to answer things before they hit play. Sometimes at mana or card disadvantage over time. And use the word tempo. I know that's supposed to be a bad word, but really it is kind of emblematic of exactly what tempo's about. You're buying yourself a little bit of value now, but it could be a problem. That's going to hurt you down the line. You just don't want the game to last that long. And so the fact that we're as deep in the game as we are could be bad news, as the Cephalid Breakfast deck does have quite a bit of staying power.
Looks like a couple reactive spells. In fact, a pair of Days over there in Ben's hand that he could hard cast right now and don't need to pay alternate costs.
True. And tapped out is Glyph. So interesting to see. I mean, that's part of the power of Urza's Saga is, works very nicely against Daze, a way to spend a lot of mana, advance your board that can't be targeted by any of these counter spells. And so as we have all of this mana that's kind of expiring organically just by playing more lands, we're looking at, these Dazes may never find a target, and you may have to find another super powered brainstorm like we saw from Ben earlier in this game in order to shuffle those away using the brainstorm plus fetchland synergy that you know and love if you're a fan of Legacy.
Yeah, and that looks like that's a new card, right? Is that a questing druid in hand as well for Ben?
Sure. Yeah. Two of them. Well, you had two of them in the deck. I think there's only one in hand. Yeah, I can't see the other card. 2 Dazes, a questing druid, and X. Not clear what X is, but we're fetching now.
Yeah, definitely access to a lot of cards coming up on this next turn for Ben if he wants it. To try to power, maybe try to get working on the Delirium for that Dragon's Rage Channeler. Now that the Murktide is gone, you don't have much of a graveyard. You're kind of back to square one on that, but it can get filled pretty quick. And yep, here we go. He's going to play the adventure side of the questing druid. That's Seek of the Beast.
Surveil Daze number 3 to the yard. Yeah, don't want that. Found Lightning Bolt. And I think this is pretty heads up. I think we did this in response to making another token before the search. Because, so the timing here before the search means that they're still 3/3s and you can still bolt them. So this is really heads up here from Ben. Being able to go seeking for a Lightning Bolt prior to the search going off and then becoming 4/4s and then bolt doesn't work anymore. Found a brainstorm too, kind of what the doctor ordered. Really powerful Seek the Beast hits, I tell you what.
Yeah, and of course, at the end of this, whether you get around to casting the questing druid or not, it is there. And Legacy is, of course, a format where after you tend to have this flurry of resources and throwing cards out of your hands, etc., it sometimes is whatever's left over. That's why Urza's Saga can just sometimes get it done with Constructs, and it might be the same if you can get a questing druid getting bigger.
I'm into this. We got a Shuko. Now we can equip it, and now we got a 4/3. Yeah. Using it as intended. That's part of the power of this deck, right? Obviously, Shuko is there as a combo piece, and that's part of the real power of Urza's Saga in this deck. Obviously the Shuko plus Nadu is a thing that we were doing in Modern, but in this deck, obviously you can use the Cephalid Illusionist, that is the Cephalid of Cephalus Breakfast, that allows you to kind of mill your entire deck and then win with a Dread Returned Thassa's Oracle after sacking some creatures and all the stuff that comes with that, but also works with Nadu in the same way. So really a lot of, glues together nicely, layers together nicely, and really part of the big pickups this deck's gotten and what burst it back onto the Legacy scene from, I would say it was fringe prior to Modern Horizons 3.
I mean, Cephalid Breakfast was kind of like one of the few old school decks named after a breakfast cereal that you could say, and people still know what you were talking about, right? Because it was that level of fringe. It was like, oh yeah, I know what that does, but you never actually encounter it in an open tournament until now. Because while putting Shuko onto your construct is not exactly where you want to be, that is part of the games you win, right? Your win percentage is made up of games where you don't just have a combo and you grind it out against a Delver deck, just trying to race. And that is the game we found ourselves in here. Now, Ben, you got to read the tireless. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Nomads in core. Yeah, obviously play against that all the time. 1 mana, 1/1. Now, how do you redirect the damage? One from it to a creature you control. Okay, sure. How does this disrupt my unholy heat? It doesn't really. Okay, great. I mean, there's some tricks you can do, and that's part of the power of these creature combo decks. And whenever you're talking about creature combos, just the creatures having summoning sickness, being more expensive, usually makes it such that creature combo decks are a little slower than things like Storm or whatever, where you have these spell-based combo decks. But what you get out of that is your F draws, where you just don't have anything going. You can still just attack with your combo pieces. We see this all over the place, right? The Yawgmoth decks that existed in Modern, Nadu was a great example. All these kinds of things, and Cephalid Breakfast among the mix. As we see here, you can just beat down with the stuff you have lying around, and that's a way to win a game. Your combo pieces attack, whereas Dark Ritual, not able to get in the red zone. Speaking of getting in the red zone, here comes, I see counting on the hand, that would lead me to believe this is a Delirious Dragon's Rage Channeler that must attack, and of course will not be blocked. 3 damage coming across because it must for Cliff.
Okay, not bad. You get the Delirious attack. You get the Murktide afterwards here.
Great follow-up. Still have that questing druid on an adventure too. So we have no shortage of threats and force and the unholy heat, some great leftovers. Brainstorms have done a great job building together the hand here. And of course, this Murktide, much bigger than the first one. So things, and this is the power of Delver. You talk about, you like to point to days, but that's not what's going on here. What's going on here is you don't need a lot of mana to operate, and you have the ability to sculpt whatever you're missing if you are given some time, and you're able to keep your opponent from just killing you while you're doing that setup. That swords, that prismatic ending early in the game, they mattered. They were disruptive. You need to find more threats. You need to get that going. We were able to assemble that. We were able to mix our cards together to get rid of our extra lands, get rid of our dead counter spells, and turn those into threats. And Delver just is able to do that so consistently thanks to these blue cantrips. So back to Cliff we go. Pile of constructs. See a Cephalid Illusionist in hand. We got the Nomads in core in play already.
Yeah, we've been talking about this fair game, and that's obviously a part of it. But hey, the threat of the Cephalid Breakfast deck is that it can combo almost at any time. Now, of course, we know that Ben is sitting on a couple counter spells. We'll see how many of them would end up getting through. Maybe just looks like the ability to pitch one force or play a force and pitch a blue card, but then the days after that, not sure how much you'd be able to fight through here, but that's the math that Cliff is working through in his head. And also, by the way, trying to figure out the combat math. Lots of different angles for him to try to approach this game from this point on.
Right, and Cliff's still at a healthy 16. So, part of the equation is what's the rush? We have 2 illusionists. Yeah. So I think, we could try it that way, make them have 2. But Ben, we know Ben has Unholy Heat up. So he does have 2 things, right? He has Unholy Heat and he has the Force of Will. Here we're going to get a look at Cephalid Illusionist, I believe, from Torment, an uncommon. Looking at the 1/1 Cephalid Wizard. And of course, whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. And that's the relevant text. But you also, 2 in a blue, this turn, all combat damage should be dealt to and dealt by target creature you control. Less relevant. What you want to do here is use free targeting effects, things like Nomads in Core and Shuko, and target the Cephalid Illusionist a lot, mill your entire library. That gives you some Narcomoebas, and of course, the creatures that you already have in play. That allows you to dread return back a Thassa's Oracle. You win. Bam. That's the combo. So it is a creature combo. It can be hard to disrupt, especially when you have multiple Cephalid Illusionists. You have multiple. We have Nomads in Core and Shuko already in place, so we have redundancy there. That can be hard to disrupt. But I mean, Ben looks like they have access to. I mean,
he's got to pitch the other force here. Yep, good call.
Yeah,
pitches the other force. Now he's got days, and I'm not sure what the other card is. There, a red card of some kind.
Unholy Heat, I believe, is the leftovers there. Good one there too. I mean, that's a lot of really good interaction.
Yeah, which he has up. Now, at the end of this, he'd be out if this goes that way, right? But as it currently stands, can catch the next spell from Cliff, answer a creature on board, and then try to ride that Murktide over the next few turns.
Yeah, that's interesting. Cliff has a Teferi Time Raveler in hand, so I think you only go for the Illusionist if you plan to play both, but playing both plays into days, and that's something that Cliff has done a good job playing around this entire game. Using sagas and stuff like that, you have an excess of mana, you're able to play around it. So if you're interested in maybe just trying to stick to Teferi, if it works, I mean, that bounces Murktide, so I think Ben has to answer that no matter what. And then, you're only playing one spell that doesn't feel as good, but you're not playing into days, and maybe you can play around days the following turn. Here, deploying Narcomoeba doesn't play on days, but it's not the extra Illusionist and provides a blocker. It's a fine, I guess, prize, but you can still get a Surveil if Ben wants to daze this.
It's an interesting play. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cutting your losses. And if you draw land, you do get to play both next turn. I think that's the best case scenario. If you can play Teferi plus Illusionist next turn, that's just a great setup. And once again, even with a Murktide on the other side of the field, I mean, Cliff is not facing down lethal. We've got a very healthy life total and now a chump blocker too.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about what you said last turn. What's the rush? If you're Cliff, I could go for it here. But you know what? I've played around days this whole game. I'll do it anyway. You want to daze my Narcomoeba? Go for it. Of course, he doesn't. That means the Narcomoeba sticks around to chump. It buys you a whole other turn to try and combo here around counter magic. And we know that Ben is now sitting on just not sure what the third one he picked up here is, but we know that another force is gone. So the hard counter magic and the free counter magic in the sense of forces are much less likely, especially when he pitched one there. So
And the
okay,
pitch
so
matters right here, right? Like you
yeah,
chose to keep the daze instead of the extra force, which wouldn't have had targets. And obviously you could have dazed the Mark Me, but chose not to, whatever. But now that you've drawn an extra blue card, that Delver doesn't have a ton of text. Like the
right,
two creatures in play are really threatening in the game already. You kind of want to just hold it. I don't even know if you want to deploy this, but if you're holding it, then you'd much rather have a force you could pitch it to.
exactly.
So it comes at a real cost. Which blue card to keep was not trivial. I think keeping daze is very likely correct. But now it's a little awkward. You're going to pass to your opponent that has 4 mana. You're sitting on a daze and a Delver that aren't really that great with what's going on. Looks like, we're actually just going to deploy everything and try to go wide around what's in play.
Well,
that's fine. Makes sense to me.
I like what Cliff did there on that turn, right? He went for that first Cephalid. It gets forced, but at that point, if you're bid, you have to make the call right there. Do I hold the daze for this 2 mana that Cliff has open after this, or do I keep a force that I absolutely cannot cast and then lose if they just go for another Cephalid, right? So that was a really difficult spot. And like you said, I think it's the right choice, but it's one that now doesn't work out. And it doesn't work out because Cliff did a great job of playing around it.
Yeah, now I don't know that he can cover this on Holy Heat. We'll have to see if he does have a plan for that. I know he picked up, he has the Teferi, and I think he picked up a Brainstorm, which could be a pretty important player here if the Unholy Heat is disruptive to the combo. But I think because of Nomads in core, you can go off. Like with Shuko, I think Unholy Heat stops it.
Right.
But with Nomads in core, I think you can just keep targeting it more. Like, here we go. 0 mana. This is the current text, I hope. The next 1 damage will be dealt to target. Yeah, this is instant speed. So if you go to Unholy Heat, the Cephalid Illusionist, you could just keep targeting it on top of that. And then the removal spell doesn't work. So then the question is, after everything's settled and you have Narcomoebas, you have so many creatures. I don't think you could even stop the Dread Return sacrifice count. So this Unholy Heat might be blank. And this is really the masterclass of this deck put together here by Cliff, really covering against everything. I mentioned, I don't know if this Unholy Heat does anything. It looks like it doesn't, based on my expert analysis that I just assembled.
Yeah, I mean, this was well done, well navigated here by Cliff, who probably has some number of reps, some Cephalid breakfast, if I had to guess. Yeah, you named it, right? You do your combo, you get it sounds simple in practice or in theory, right? But in practice, when you start talking around all the cards you're going to play around over multiple turns, you can see this game could have gone very differently if Cliff had made a few different choices. But instead, it looks like both players just here thinking about it, been realizing that, okay, I don't really think this is gonna do anything now. So I guess we'll see what happens. And now Cliff's trying to work through what can go wrong if I just go for it here.
Yeah, I think Cliff might be kind of sniffing out what's going on, that at least a removal spell's involved. I don't know, necessarily what goes wrong casting this Brainstorm versus not. You still can pay for days, so I think you're safe there. It's probably fine. And obviously, if you mill your entire library, then you can't cast the Brainstorm anymore at that point. So it's not getting any better. I don't think 2 removal spells worked. I would be shocked to see a pass of the turn here. I think going for the combo, like I said, it looks like everything can happen at instant speed. So I think you're safe against any kind of onboard removal spells. So I think we're going to see some milling happen here. And here we go. 3 cards milled. 1 at a time. I think you have to do it 1 at a time because the Narcomoebas, you have to put them on the stack and then they come back or whatever.
All right, we've got Ben checking out that card. I'm actually not familiar with what that one is offhand either, so maybe
That's a Dread Return. That is a new art for
Dread Return. Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that art. That's, again, classic Dread Returns, what I'd be looking for. But that's the key card here in the combo. And here come the Narcomoebas.
Yeah, I think we have an Narcomoeba in hand. Only 2 on the list, so only 1 more coming, and there it is.
Oh, okay.
But you only need 3 creatures. The point of this is you only need 3 creatures. Most of the time you get 2 out of the box with Nomads in core and Cephalid Illusionists. So only need 1 of the Narcomoebas anyway. In this case, we have Constructs too. So we have plenty of fuel to sacrifice 3 creatures to Dread Return and, of course, target the Thassa's Oracle. Yeah, so I think we're stacking our creatures in such a way that we actually get to keep our creatures around. Now, I don't really know what we're playing around by doing it this way. There might be some graveyard hate or something. I mean, this is still game 1, so you don't have to worry about any kind of sideboard cards. But I'm sure, Cliff's mechanics, someone very proficient with Legacy. I mean, I think we've seen Cliff play a lot of Reanimator in the past. Does like the combo blue style decks, of which, and of course, this is one. Very different look for Reanimator, but a lot of the same overall concepts at play.
Yeah. Well, hey, we want to welcome in the raid from Doomwake. Devin, thank you for sending them this way. Thank you for, of course, all that you do for the series. And welcome in, everybody, if you're joining us. I'm Corbin Hostler. I've got Drake Sasser with me. We are checking out Legacy here in the Team Trios round 6 of the NRG Championship Series. Deep in game 1 here, Ben and Cliff. Cliff trying to make it a clean sweep for his team of Travis Williams and Fletcher Johnson, going up a game on Ben and his teammates Jake Conan and Harrison Canfer.
Okay, so yeah, we killed a creature in response, surveilled a card to the graveyard. We've dazed, we've paid for the dread return, and that's going to do it for game number 1. And as you mentioned, a clean sweep in game 1 for all of these players. So while they're shuffling up and sideboarding, cool thing about team events is we can hop over to another match. And it looks like we can hop over. Let's hop over to standard. It looks like they're still in the midst of playing their game number 2. This is the Esper Pixie. I believe more correctly, the Esper self bounce, but of course includes the 1-mana white cards, one of which is a Pixie. As I get these deck lists pulled up.
Yeah.
Look at the board state. This looks to be going very much in favor of Harrison Canfer on the Esper Pixie deck on the right. If you just count permanents, which I do hold in high regard.
Limited all-stars on that side of the board, and then there's a constructed all-star right there. But yeah, this deck is so cool. If you're not up to date on standard, there's a lot going on in standard. And this self-bounce Esper Pixie deck is one of the coolest. Like, Nowhere to Run, that's an enchantment you can pick up for value. The Nightmare, the enchantment that makes him discard, that's something you can pick up for value. The Fear of Isolation, the Duskmourn Uncommon Bomb right there you see on tapping, that picks up all of these enchantments for value. It's all of the above out of this deck. And then now, obviously, on the Gruul aggro deck, Travis Williams, it doesn't need a lot of mana to function, but it does typically need more than 2 at this point of the game. So while this is, maybe less of a, we'll see how things play out here, but maybe not a super competitive game, it is definitely a showcase of the Esper Pixie deck. You see all the value it can generate right there on the board.
Well, I mean, the Gruul aggro deck is known for being able to produce a lot of direct damage out of nowhere, thanks to all of your pump spells, and of course the ability to sacrifice your creature, deal a bunch of damage through that, the Heartfire hero dying and things of that nature. So, as long as there's spells in hand, I don't want to count the Gruul aggro deck out yet. I was very impressed watching Theo Jung win the NRG championship with his take on the Gruul aggro deck. And it looks like these kind of self-bounce, kind of recursive engine decks have been kind of the answer, the developmental answer of the standard format to these Gruul aggro decks. This theoretically, I would imagine, is at least a fine matchup. As Canfer is already down a game, but clearly has adjusted, got a Fear Isolation in play, laying some smackdowns.
Yeah, and there you go. Pixie is a nice draw here because it allows you to pick up whatever it is you choose to want to pick up. With Nowhere to Run. And yeah, we spotted I think there was a Monstrous Rage in Travis's hand. So that is sort of the card that always leads to the really insane starts insane turns out of the Gruul aggro deck is how much damage you can start stacking up with Monstrous Rage. But Nowhere to Run is just such a clean answer, a good answer. The Pixie gives you a blocker, and you're just getting kind of ground out of cards. If you're Travis, even despite being short on lands, you're just going to be down on cards at the end of all of it too, because of the removal spells getting rebought.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of the problem. I wouldn't call Travis out of this quite yet. Now, the Nurturing Pixie was a really problematic draw. This is something that obviously gave a flying body, and an additional removal spell. But once again, like I said, multiple spells in the end. Here comes the Monstrous Rage. Yeah, I mean, this could be a big hit here.
He recognizes his opportunity here, says, okay, if we don't have a blocker, I'm going to get in the damage while I can. So one Monstrous Rage goes through, and he's thinking about a second one here. He's not going to be able to play. I think that's a 3-drop in his hand, but holds on to the second.
The Name of City is what that one looked like to me. A card out of the sideboard. Got 3 of those in the sideboard. I'd imagine for the grindy matchups. So believes that looking to grind against this deck, believing that the coming out the gates hard not going to work, which makes sense, right? Like I said, we just talked about really one of the things that the self-bounce decks are looking to do in this matchup is just recur, like Nowhere to Run. Just keep blowing up the creatures over and over and over again. And so having just another threat that doesn't die to a -3/-3 effect, that's a pretty good card to pick up if you can cast it, which is currently obviously the issue.
Torch the Tower, I think, was the pickup for Travis. That slows down the clock against him a little bit, along with the Monstrous Rage. Harrison just turned both of those cards sideways instantly, and now just takes the damage, I think. So, yeah, you're right about Travis maybe being able to find a line into this. If Harrison whiffs on another draw or two, the combat math could start looking pretty good for Travis.
Yeah, Kiefer's done a good job. I mean, these flyers obviously hard to block, so you can't really plan to assemble any kinds of blocks. The only question is, with the Torch to Tower pickup, like we said, can we swing the race any?
You can get rid of either blocker or, well, either of Harrison's creatures with the Torture Tower, right? Because you could sacrifice the roll token.
The roll, yeah.
The Monstrous Rage will then replace the roll, giving you another trigger. I mean, this is he's counting it up right here, right? Seeing how low he thinks he could get Harrison. I don't know if it's going to be quite enough, though, on this turn. But this game right in the balance, very much so, because we see 2 turns for at least if you're Harrison, you think that's your clock on Travis. And if you're Travis, you're just trying to assemble, 2 or 3 spells here every time you get no block. So here we go. Upkeep, Torch to Tower.
Upkeep, Torch. So that was a hit for 3. I believe Harrison down to 7, if I can read the life pad correctly, which means that 7 to 8, we just picked off the Pixie with the Torch, the Tower, which makes sense, right? Like, you don't have to sacrifice the roll, and it's the same power that you're removing, both 2-power creatures. And that looks like a brick from Cam for at least 1. I mean, that's a lot of mana in play, and none of them really any kinds of utility lands or anything going on of that nature. So, I mean, Restless Anchorage, only 2 copies of those in the deck. I don't see one in play, so yeah, just non-ability based lands. Here comes another crunch for 3. No blocks. Could play Sentinel the Nameless City. Finally found land number 3. Doesn't block though, so I don't know that it actually does.
Here we go.
We're still in combat. All right, that's 2 more to 5. That would put him for the 1 and then activate.
Oh, wow. The last card is Nowhere to Run.
Okay.
He was holding it just face down forever, and it kind of made sense with the way he was attacking, but hey, he did not flash that one to the camera, so that was a surprise to all of us, that Nowhere to Run, that looks like it keeps him alive in the game just to draw Darkslick Shores.
Yeah, that's tough. Another land draw there is brutal, and now, I mean, I don't even know that a chump block does anything for you. I mean, you're just bleeding.
Yeah, here comes the Sentinel as well.
Yep, got a block. Don't really have a choice. Die otherwise.
Well,
and now the Sentinel, the Nameless City, does have text.
It looked like Harrison had control of this game, but just too many lands in the last 4 or 5 draws there, including this final turn. Well, kind of a brutal way to go
getting
out
2-0 swept is tough. Well, let's hop on back to Legacy, where it's again clean sweep there, and Travis didn't even lose a single game, but we're done there too. And so that looks like
that should do it.
Absolutely speed running this, a dominant performance from Cliff Ortiz team. And I mean, Cephalid Breakfast getting it done. Not a deck I would normally think of as quick. Gruul Aggro, on the other hand, I do think of as quick. So those keeping up the same pace, quite impressive. We'll get a little talk to them about their team composition and their deck choices, of course, here in just a little bit. But in the meantime, of course, that was the penultimate round as they're getting seated. We're not going to hold you too long on that. They're getting seated. That was round number 6 of 7. So team events mean that there's less rounds because you have less virtual players. And, this will be the second to last round of Swiss. We'll have the last round of Swiss coming up. Then, of course, we're going to play out the top 8 through the rest of today. Crown not 1, not 2, but 3 champions. And, of course, like I said, we're going to be mostly focusing, I think, on Legacy throughout the rest of the day. Legacy, of course, my favorite format. Very happy to be able to show that on the NRG series. And, of course, if you like these kinds of events, you like Legacy, well, I don't know that we have more of it going on for the rest of the season, but we do have plenty of other events featuring a lot of other formats. In March, we'll be heading over to Madison, Wisconsin for a 10K standard showdown and a 5K Pioneer trial. So Pioneer not featured in our team trios, going to get a little bit of love in Madison. After that, we'll be heading back to Chicagoland for a 10K Modern showdown, and the second one of the season there, and a 5K standard trial. And then the capstone, my favorite event of our season 1, stops in Indianapolis, 10K standard showdown, and our limited debut for this year, 10K team sealed showdown. That'll be a pretty sweet event. And of course, we'll crown 3 champions, 3 players into the NRG championship as a result. So if you're interested in any of these events. Make sure you make it out, get that time off, head out, and of course, assemble your team if you're looking to do some sealed gaming. Let's head on over to the leaderboard as well. We've had one event thus far, the showdown yesterday. I got to cast that with Doom Wake, kind enough to rate us a little bit earlier, where we got to see our first look at Modern with Twin and Green Sun Zenith and all that fun stuff. And more importantly, Mox Opal, which shockingly did not win the first event. Grayson Nemitz got it done. Eldrazi Ramp now leading the pack. Current player of the year if things were to end after one event, but there's a lot more events coming. And some of these players, I know Cliff D among the mix, we see in all of our events. So we're going to be seeing quite a bit of them as they are getting seated. We're going to get to talk to them, talk to their team, talk about their preparation for this event.
The leaderboard, I think, is such a, obviously we're just getting going on the season, but I think that's what really makes this series so much fun to jump into, especially at the beginning of the season. You watch the NRG Championship a couple months ago, you see, hey, I want to make it there. Well, now's your chance because you can get onto that leaderboard with just one weekend, and it can get you can qualify with the one shot if you can pop and then win a big event. So, all right, let's
got them seated. Hello, are we? Is this team handhold wins? Is that how I see this? Are we team handhold?
Team handhold.
No. This is team ninth.
Ninth.
Yep.
Ninth place.
Dear.
Cliff is
displaying wrong on my screen. Then, well, congratulations, Team Ninth, on your win. Talk to me a little bit about your team, your preparation. Cliff Brady, you're someone that we have seen before quite a bit on this series, and obviously you got your jacket here today. Talk to me about the team you came up with and how you decided who was going to play what.
So I knew I'd have Fletcher on my team. That was locked, and we scoured the internet for our third player. We picked up Travis, a very good player.
Thank you.
We just decided to play our decks that are good in all the formats. And here we are.
Well, it's working out so far. You did certainly look good in that last round across all three formats, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and talk to me a little bit about, I mean, obviously you said you just played the best deck in the format. Was that just literally, I mean, your decision-making? Like I said, I spoke a little bit. I've seen you play Reanimator. You know, obviously Blue Combo is your thing. Picking up the Cephalid Breakfast deck, you know, is that what you believe is the best deck? Do you believe you have the set of the best decks in all three formats?
So I used to play Breakfast all the time back before the NRG series. I picked up Blue-Black because the Frog was really good. And then once the Frog was gone, I was like, I don't want to play it anymore. I thought that Delver had a resurgence, so Breakfast was a natural fit to slide in and beat the Delver decks. Travis has been on practicing the Gruul deck for a while, so that was perfect pick for the standard deck, and obviously the Breach deck has just been tearing it up, so we got Fletcher on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk to me about the modern prep, Fletcher. You know, were you, as soon as Box Up was unbanned, you see the Breach, you're just about that, no questions asked? I mean, didn't win yesterday. I mean, I don't know if that's, you know, deterministic on anything, but just know your modern prep was just Breach the whole time?
So, like, right when stuff got unbanned, I really, really wanted to believe that Phoenix was going to be an actual good deck.
Yeah.
But my cousin told me, oh, since like Faithless Looting and Opal are going to get unbanned, I should just get a bunch of Breach stuff. And I still don't have a bunch of Breach stuff because that is way too much money. But I mean, the deck is just like crazy. Like before, you could pretty accurately determine when they like can have a kill the next turn. But now with Opal, it's just you can kind of just have like kills out of nowhere. And I'm not sure if you guys like saw my games, but my game 1, I won on a mold of 4 on the play, and then game 2, I saga'd on turn 1, and then started like making tokens on 2. It's just the multiple like versions or the multiple ways this deck has to win is just like so insane right now, and lots of decks just have no way of beating it.
Yeah, we've seen that play out, you know, very realistically throughout this. Just can't cover every angle in the sideboards. And yeah, I mean, a mold of 4, being able to blow the doors off this extremely powerful modern format, incredible. I mean, we were focusing mostly on Legacy. I'll say that we don't get to see as much Legacy these days as we used to. So that's going to be kind of the focus going forward. So got to see quite a bit of Cliff masterfully navigating some stuff, and even some Gruul aggros. Congratulations to both of you guys, and of course your entire team. You're situated very well. Any final shout out you want to say? Anything else you got? The floor is yours.
Well, I want to shout out my boy Jordan Litsky for talking through the Gruul list with me over the past week. We came to some pretty good conclusions about how to play the deck, how to sideboard, and all that. And yeah, I really like his position right now, so I would run it back.
Yeah, that dominating performance, I think, certainly demonstrates how powerful it really is. I think it's quite powerful. I liked it a lot when we saw Theo Jung win with it, and it doesn't look to be stopped by any little pixies or anything of that nature. All right. Well, thank you all. Congratulations, ninth place. I hope you do not get ninth place
That's
at
the
this
going
event.
in.
I hope you
That's
do
our
Good
not
luck
live up
next
to the
round.
name.
That's the
And we'll be
life.
seeing more of you in the rest of the tournament, I'm sure. Thank you all, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, that's not a joke, Drake. People do draw themselves into ninth sometimes. You got to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I hear it called tournament math quite often. And, it is kind of a meme. Cliff, especially, had kind of a string of heartbreakers. I think that's where the name comes from. I probably should have pieced that together more than the display that was going on over here for me, is because he just had a ton of ninth place heartbreaking finishes. And I don't even know if that was drawing into ninth place. I think it was like multiple, like just winning and hoping, and then you get ninth and
I'm
someone else
not
gets
sure
ahead of
which
you
is
because of
worse,
breakers.
but I'm pretty sure it's drawing into ninth. Yeah.
They both sting. They both sting. Nobody, I mean, the only thing feels worse than ninth is probably second. Second hurts, I think, the most.
Confirmed.
Well, either way, that's going to do it here for round number 6. That was a really quick match. So I think we're going to have quite a bit of time prior to actually getting round number 7, the final round of Swiss, and then, of course, proceeding into our top 8. So great time for those of you that have been watching all day, watching Magic. Go get a snack. You have some time to use the bathroom and all that stuff. And, of course, you have time to follow and subscribe to remove ads and get some sweet emotes. So, thank you all for joining us. We're going to have a lot more, like I said, a lot more Legacy and, of course, the other formats as well here on the NRG series. But for the time being, we're going to be cutting to a break that might be a little bit longer than average, but don't go anywhere. Stay glued to your screen as soon as you get back with snacks. We'll see you soon.